Live. We have two wonderful individuals here. They are the most experienced advocates at Call to Peace Ministries. Together, I believe they have now, if I said 80 last year, I believe it'll be 82 this year. Is that correct?
Right.
Yes, two, each additional year for both of you. So they have 82 years of combined experience when it comes to advocacy. And these ladies and gentlemen, because both men and women are invited to our advocacy courses, are the women behind those who lead our advocacy courses. And so I'm going to let them go ahead and introduce themselves. And who wants to go first?
I'll let Debra. She's the guest.
I'm Dr. Debra Wingfield. I have been working with abuse survivors my entire career. It spans over 50 years now. I don't know if I should keep counting or just say that. And I believe that with good education, both advocates and other helpers, mental health professionals, attorneys, people who are working with survivors of domestic abuse can benefit from the courses that we have pulled together for you.
Yes. All right. And I'm Joy Forrest. I'm the founder and executive director of Call to Peace Ministries and author of the books that have the name Called to Peace in them. And so I have been advocating probably since right after I got out. I probably wasn't ready to advocate. And I know I made a lot of mistakes because I didn't know what I was doing. But God was very gracious and got me a job at a domestic violence shelter I wasn't looking for. And so I did learn over time. And so I've been doing this again since about 1997. And so how many is that year? 26 years now. It'll be 27 years in the new year. So, anyway, I am just so grateful that God brought Dr. Debra Wingfield into my life, into the life of Called to Peace Ministries. I'm going to tell the story, Lauren, because I just love to tell it. In about 2018, I had a bunch of people start asking me if I would teach an advocacy course. And I thought, why do people keep asking me this? Now, I did have my certification with the North Carolina Coalition Against Domestic Violence, but sorry, it was a lot of political correctness and how do you keep your money if you've got a federal grant, which we did not, and we still don't. But I thought about it and I thought, I really just don't have the time. Called to Peace was growing so fast. And so after about 4 people asked me, I finally said, God, if you want this to happen, then you just need to figure out a way. You need to send somebody that can help because I can't do this alone. And so about that time, I would say a month or 2 later, Dr. Debra Wingfield, who is this woman? I had no clue that she was well known in the domestic violence circles. And she was a professor at Colorado State Pueblo and had been teaching about domestic violence and coercive control at a master's level. And so we finally got together and she walks into my office and says, Joy, I've got 30 courses that I've written on domestic violence and advocacy. We're not getting any younger. We need to share this knowledge with other people. And I'm like, okay, so here we go. And so that began a partnership that we did the first classes in January of 2019. And at this point, we're getting close to almost 800 people who've gone through at least one of the classes. And so they've been helpful to people who want to do a better job in their ministries, to people who want to end up volunteering with us. So it has transformed the life of Called to Peace Ministries. We now have an advocacy program where we can provide one-on-one advocates, which we couldn't have done before this program. So I just see this as all part of God's heart to help. And to me, it's a miraculous. It just was a miraculous thing when Dr. Debra walked into my office, and the rest is history, as they say.
Right. And we have found so many people who've taken the advocacy training courses. The first year they say, it really helped me with my healing. And then they come back for the second year for free and continue on. And that's where they say, now I think I'm ready to be an advocate. I'm ready to step into numerous roles that have been developed as a result of the program.
And that includes our church partnership program has all sprung from our advocacy training. So anyway, sorry, Lauren, we're driving you crazy because we're not speaking in order.
No, that's
So,
fine.
no.
I apologize. I'm just trying to get the right person in the center. But yes, I agree with so much of what you're saying. And I appreciate that point that you brought out, Debra, Dr. Debra, excuse me, of women taking the course for the first time and desiring to become an advocate. Maybe they desire to work in advocacy. And I have learned one thing working in this work is that when you begin working in domestic abuse and begin sitting under it and learning it, you realize you have a lot of trauma that's not healed. Just because it's so complex, so much starts coming out. And it's when you face it and go head on, you begin to see areas of your life that are unhealed and that need healing. And so many women come into this course desiring to serve, probably like myself, and realize, wow, I found so much healing. It was painful, it was hard, but wow, I feel free. It's worth it. Now I need to go back through it again and learn, and I'm ready to give this back to other people. And so I love that. Their lives are just radically transformed. They found deeper levels of healing, and now they are helping other women find healing and hope after domestic abuse. So let's talk more about this. Let's get into this. How are you seeing the advocacy course change and heal women's lives? And why does this happen through the course?
Well, let me speak to that a minute, Lauren. One of the things that I found over the course of my career is that when people have knowledge, that knowledge actually helps them to understand what they have been through and how they can then choose to change, how they can choose to be different in their lives. And one of the things that we do emphasize is advocates never tell a survivor what to do. We encourage them to find their own path. We might give them some choices to consider, but ultimately the choices they make are their own. And that's one of the things that we are really adamant about is we don't tell anyone what to do with their lives. They know their lives better than we do. And our goal is to make sure that they have not only the knowledge, but then the ability to take that and heal. So one of the things that they can do is they can say, oh, I've learned this. Now, how do I apply this to my trauma? And we say, find a real good trauma-informed therapist who understands coercive control dynamics and work through that with a therapist, and then come back and start working to help other women.
Wonderful. Right. And so I would say that what you just said, Dr. Debra, about knowledge, there is a passage of scripture that says people perish for a lack of knowledge. And so I think that's why it's so powerful that when we start understanding the dynamics behind domestic abuse, and part of that is that these are people who have had their agency taken away from them. Their choice has been removed from them. Mm-hmm. And so the fact that we don't tell them what to do, that we allow them to rediscover their God-given agency, to find out who God created them to be. I know that for me, I couldn't even think my own thoughts coming out of abuse. I had been so programmed. Mm-hmm. So this is our goal as advocates, is to help restore their agency, to help them find the freedom from the lies that they've come to believe as the result of living under abuse. And then, but basically, I think that a good advocate, our goals too, besides restoring their agency and helping them to start making their own decisions, is to help connect them with good resources. And I think that this course is, or these courses, so there's actually 12 over the course of a year. And so these classes really help open eyes, and they give a lot of information and help us to understand, all the research out there. That's what I really appreciated about Dr. Debra's work when she first came to me, was this isn't just somebody's idea about what might happen or some kind of theory or program, but it's basically, her information is research based, based on studies with survivors of abuse, that even go as deep as we have a couple of classes that involve the courts. And we know that the courts, as believers, we see that the church has missed it. Many times over the years, that's beginning to change, and we're so grateful. But the courts, it's, I think, way worse than what has happened in the churches, because the courts have the power to take children away from their mothers, and good mothers. And we've seen it happen so many times. So this information is just so helpful for anybody that wants to understand the dynamics, to understand what victims of domestic abuse and coercive control face on a regular basis, and how
Joy.
Well,
Sorry, you sound like you're underwater. Is it
Oh.
just me?
no,
Dr.
for the
Debra?
whole, yeah, sorry. Let me.
There.
Just the very last end of it. Yeah, somebody's watching.
How
Please
about
let me
now?
know. You sound
How
fine.
about-
Just when you pulled away a little bit, I couldn't hear it clearly. So I want to make sure
No.
everybody hears what you have to say. This is so important. It was just the
Yeah.
last sentence.
Well, this happens to me every now and then, and I find if I mute and come back, it gets better. So I'll just mute for a while. So let you go to the next question. And we don't want to make this too long. We really just want to get the information to everyone. And so we got about 10 or 15 more minutes. So.
All right. What subjects are covered in the advocacy course?
That's a great question, Lauren. We cover the basics of coercive control. That's the foundation of everything that we base our training on. And then we look at those coercive control dynamics in relationship to victim survivors, as well as how abusers use that. And then beyond that, we teach how to interview. We teach how to actually listen to survivors so that you are actually there for them and they get their message across and they're heard. And then we talk about trauma. We talk about impacts on children. We talk about resources in the community. And then we talk about the court system. We have 2 courses on the court system. And then we look at child abuse. And so we are covering a broad range of topics. And these topics actually are considered a foundation for all advocacy work.
Amazing. And while we're in the middle of this, as I got everybody's attention, I have to tell you something. We are in the middle of a campaign, and our goal is to raise $125,000 right now, and that is going 100% towards our advocacy support services. So what they are talking about, what they're explaining, these trained advocates, we are now expanding these services that we offer because we've had an influx of women who are reaching out, and we want to be able to accommodate that. And so I'll link a previous video where we talk about that and what all happens. But right now we've only raised $15,000 of that. And we have a matching grant that I'll talk more about at the end to see if you qualify for and can help double your impact to grow our advocacy support. So now we're moving to our next segment, and that is, let's talk about those who are wanting to advocate for the oppressed. Do I have to take all the courses, or can I sign up and take a few?
I'll answer that one.
Okay.
You can take just a few. We would love for you to join us for the whole curriculum for the entire year. But if you can't do that, we would recommend you start with the very beginning. We've got the dynamics of coercive control, domestic abuse and coercive control that you really want to understand those dynamics. So the first 2 to 3 courses, we've got people who may take 1 or 2. The good thing is that if you sign up with us and you take at least one, well, what happens is when you sign up is that you actually are going to be charged unless you ask to stop. And that will go on for a year. It ends at the end of a year. But if you do the entire year with us, you can repeat those classes every single year with us for free. And we do update, or Dr. Debra, I should say, she does the research. She keeps it updated every single year. We have new information, the latest research, and we try to improve it year after year. So you can join us live on Tuesdays from 11:30 a.m. to 1:15 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, or if you can't be with us live, then you can watch the replays and send us a report so that you still get credit for the classes. And so you will have, if you did all 12 of the classes plus our Q&A opportunities, then you would have about 96 hours of training. And so it is so comprehensive. I don't know anything out there that's like this. I have done a lot of training over the years, but I have learned, I continue to learn because she updates it every single year. And so there's something new to learn every single year. And it's so helpful. I mean, a lot of our advocates will just repeat the classes every year because they want that continuing new information, but it helps them become better advocates. And we know that with domestic abuse, people really do perish for a lack of knowledge. And so what we find is that a lot of times, people who are trying to help can do a lot of harm. And I know that I did that up front. I didn't know what to do. I was trying to direct people, telling them what they needed to do. And it really was not that helpful. And so anyway, I just think that these are the most valuable classes out there. I mean, and I know people who are experts on domestic abuse, who this is what they do for their work. And sometimes they say things and I'm like, oh, not according to the latest research. We don't say it that way anymore. So,
So one of the things that I would like to share is each course actually has 4 classes in it. So we do 4 weeks on a class, and then if you take the quiz and the quizzes are easily passable, then you will get a certificate for that course. And I know some people have actually used this education to go on and get some jobs in working with victims of domestic abuse. Besides doing their work with Call to Peace, some people have started other programs in their communities to help out because the need is so great. And I know we talk about the numbers of people who are requesting services. And Joy, you might just say how much our growth in that area has expanded exponentially in the last 5 years.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we continue to grow. I haven't gotten the latest statistics, but I know that last year when we were looking at our growth from 2017, that we had over a 900% growth rate. I think now maybe 300. I saw 300 in one of the posts that somebody did, but I don't know when that is from. So, but I just know we have grown astronomically, and we're so grateful because the advocacy course helps us to grow well and to be able to provide really solid services. Our church partnership program, I said, grew out of that. I used to think, I mean, I would go in advocating for women in churches, and I used to think, man, I wish I had a pastor who would come and speak to these pastors. So finally, one day I decided we're just going to hire a pastor, but I picked one of our board members who was in the classes already. He was taking the classes to become better equipped. And so he was our first church partnership liaison. And now we have a whole team with 2 on staff and 20 members, volunteers across the country, where we go in and we do trainings and we support churches by helping them better handle cases of domestic abuse. And so because of the advocacy training, we're just not going out there blindly. We've got well-trained people who can go in and help with these situations that are so sticky and hard to deal with. So it's really been such a blessing that we can provide better services. I think that these programs might have existed, but I don't think that we would have had the quality of training. And I feel so confident in what we're doing now because we even have a whole team of advocates who can support the ones that are volunteering with us. And this is an amazing thing.
And we do have a need for more advocates. We're constantly looking for people to help us because the growing numbers of people who are asking for help continue. So if you think, oh, well, I'll get all this training and then I won't have any way to apply it, we can assure you that there are plenty of situations where you can apply this training.
Yeah. And so if you take all 12 classes, or courses, not classes, because there will be a bunch more classes involved. But if you take all 12 courses in the year, then you can basically apply to become a volunteer with us. So, I mean, we can send you as few or as many cases as you want. We'll actually vet you first to make sure that we think you're ready. But we also walk alongside and help support you. So if this is something that's in your heart to do and you want to really come alongside those who have experienced abuse and oppression, we would love for you to join us. And Dr. Debra, I saw, made a comment in the chat there that prices are about to go up. We have not raised prices since we began this in 2019, so that's 5 years ago. And we are finally having to raise the prices because our team is building and people have to get paid. And this is actually not something that's through House of Peace Publications in conjunction with Call to Peace Ministries, but it is really not. It's not a Call to Peace Ministries class, except that we use this curriculum to train our folks. And we are involved with it because so many of us have been trained through it, and we help do the training now, or I've been helping since the beginning. But anyway, Dr. Debra and I came up with this many years ago, like in the fall of 2018. So anyway, we've just seen so many amazing things through it, and we would love to have people join us. Lauren, are there any other details? Dr. Debra, what are we
Yes.
forgetting to tell people? We just want to make sure that we get the information out, but I don't want to stay too long.
Yes, and absolutely. And I feel like y'all answered my next question, which is I love what you both shared, and especially Dr. Deborah was saying about how so many women that go through this don't necessarily become advocates only with Call to Peace. So many of them start their own nonprofits. So many of them may become paid advocates in other areas or serve in another ministry. And we're excited about that as well. So I was going to ask next is if you don't desire to become an advocate, can you still take the courses? And so I want to highlight, we've kind of already answered that yes, absolutely. This course is for you if you just want to go and do a deeper dive into your healing and say, hey, I really want to be informed in domestic abuse so I can stop ending up maybe in a cycle of domestic abuse, or understanding the impacts. I want to be able to understand the impacts of it so I can fully heal and understand how to parent my children who are traumatized by this, because we talk about the impacts of children and how to parent them. Or maybe you just want to help loved ones, and maybe you've been a survivor and you have people that are just reaching out to you because they hear your story and they need a safe place, and you're like, I need a few courses. Absolutely, come join us. You don't have to do the whole 12 course. You can pick and choose and say, I just want to take this course or these classes. Now, you can't become an affiliated advocate that way, but you can take courses that you desire to take. And that leads me into my next question in my charge is we really want to see more people in this course that are ministry leaders and pastors and therapists. And the reason for that being, and we're saying that, is not every course may be applicable to you. Maybe you don't have time to do every course if you're a ministry leader or a pastor. If you're a therapist, we recommend all of them, please. That we want to talk about that and why we're inviting you into that. And why is that important? Why do y'all recommend that every therapist, ministry leader, and pastor, I would even say, and let's go into survivors, why should they take this advocacy course?
Well, I would say so that they can do it justice. We, as I said, I made a lot of mistakes because domestic abuse, and this is something Dr. Debra says all the time, is counterintuitive. A lot of times it's not what it seems from just outward appearances. A lot of times because survivors are so traumatized, they don't look very stable, and abusive people are very good actors and know how to look very stable. So it can be very confusing for people helpers to handle it very well. And I also have come to believe that domestic abuse, coercive control, we keep saying that's the new terminology because it doesn't have to be physical violence. And I think that's where everybody wants to categorize it. And so I think it keeps people confused. But we're talking about uneven power dynamics where somebody is basically lording it over and oppressing somebody, the other partner in the relationship. And so I've come to believe that working with these kinds of situations really is kind of a specialty thing, especially for counselors. I would not want to go and see a counselor who hadn't had a lot of training in domestic abuse. Unless, even if they've lived it, and I've seen this because we have had people who come through our ministry who went into counseling, but they didn't get this kind of training, and they were a lot of times still doing their counseling out of their own pain because they hadn't gone through the healing process. And as we said, even the classes can help with that healing process as you start to recognize what truly happened. And it's for, pastors and church leaders. We've had a lot that have gone through it, because whether you believe it or not, whether you've seen it or not, there is domestic abuse in your congregation. And we know that as many as 1 in 3 will experience physical violence at the hand of a perpetrator in their lifetime. But we also know that the statistics are just not much better, even in the church. So we want pastors, there should always be somebody on your staff, somebody in your church who understands how to deal with this issue. I mean, you can always reach out to Call to Peace Ministries, but even once we start partnering with churches, we ask that they get some people in their church just trained on this dynamic so that they can better respond. So I'm going to let you say whatever you want to say, Dr. Debra.
Well, I just want to say that prior to teaching these courses with Call to Peace, I was teaching these courses in other situations. And I had someone who was a social worker who was working with a couple, and she was coming through the courses so that she could expand her practice. And just one class, 1 hour and 45-minute class, helped her see a couple that she was working with from a totally different viewpoint. And she said, before I took your class, I didn't see the domestic abuse, the coercive control that was going on. As a result of that, I completely changed my approach with this couple. And we do know that a lot of therapists treat couples where there's domestic abuse or coercive control going on. And we also know from the research, now this is not just my words, this is the research, says that's extremely detrimental, and that every couple that comes for couples counseling should be interviewed separately first to determine if there's domestic abuse before they bring them together as a couple, because we have seen so much damage, so much trauma happen to the victim because a therapist was untrained. So we really want therapists to come through this. And we're hoping to have some good news for therapists in the next few months.
And biblical counselors like me.
Right.
So, yeah, so we come at it from different perspectives, but we've had a lot of biblical counselors come through these trainings, and they all say the same thing. This has been very helpful. I was talking to somebody this morning and talking about, you remember those pictures they had back in the 1990s, and they look like a bunch of dots on a page, but if you stared at it really hard, you could see a shark or an animal of some sort, but you had to just look at it the right way in order to see it. So Dan Beck, who's our church partnership coordinator, he started putting that in our Protect the Flock trainings. And because what he said is, once you found out where to look, then you could see that shark or whatever every single time you passed that picture. But before, it could take forever. You couldn't see it. And so that's how it is with domestic violence, coercive control. Unless you have lived it, and even if you're living it, it took me 23 years of living with it before I recognized it. So it's so hard to even identify. And this is one thing it's going to really help you do, is to understand what it truly looks like, so you can't miss it anymore. You can walk by every time and go, oh, that's abuse. I had the woman I was talking to is actually a counselor. And she was saying, now that I've got this training, I feel like I see it everywhere. And I said, I know. She said, my husband said, he said, you're just seeing abuse everywhere. She said, I let him read a few books. Like he read my book and Chris Moll's book. And she said, and now he says, now I see what you mean. Because it is. I mean, we have these power dynamics going on a lot. I mean, I even see it on a national scale. I would say that when we see terrorism, like we're seeing now over in the Middle East, terrorism is just like domestic abuse. They feed on lies. They claim to be victims, and so we see that you can learn a whole lot. I mean, when you start recognizing these dynamics, then you can actually be effective in helping. Until you recognize it, it's really hard to respond well.
Absolutely. Oh, sorry, Dr. Debbie, you look, you're going to say something.
I was just going to say what Joy was saying was very true. And you do see it. And the sad part about that is our statistics are so poor on identifying domestic abuse and coercive control because it's so carefully hidden by oppressors that don't want it to be seen. They want to continue to be able to oppress. And the way to get accurate statistics is to get enough people educated so that people are seeing it and they're calling it out.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much. And I can say, as somebody who does not have as much experience anywhere close to y'all, I feel like getting that is so true. Getting this training, it's really hard to not see it when other people can't recognize it. You're just like, well, nope, I see it right then and there really quickly. You cannot unsee it. And you find like, wow, you really were right about this. How'd you know? And it's like the training equips you so well that even the tiny minor things other people miss, it's just you can't unsee it. You see the red flags right there. So I highly recommend this course to every survivor. So many survivors have said, hey, it kept me from entering into another abusive relationship. We find that often. It changes the way they even view their personal friendships because they don't understand abuse or recognize it. A lot of times they find themselves ending up in another abusive friendship or a relationship. And so, a lot of people say in the new year, they want to start over. They want to make a new you. So, hey, we're inviting you, and I'm not meaning that in a without Christ new way, but we're inviting you as a survivor right now. If you want to be encouraged and to say, I want to become stronger, I want to grow, I want to heal, start with the advocacy course this year, and you will be amazed at where you possibly could be next year in your healing journey just because of what you learned. And so, yeah, I wish every survivor could take it. I love it so much. It was so beneficial to me, and I'm so grateful for you. And I thank you so much for everything you shared. Before we close out, I do want to remind everybody again about our end of the year story that we're sharing right now about Sean Quella. Sean Quella is our end of the year story that you see posted on our Facebook page often. And her life was so transformed by advocacy. She went through the course, she received support from us and literally healed her and changed the trajectory of her life and her children's lives. She's like, I'm able to parent from a more calm state. I'm able to give love that I never gave before. So I'm amazed at the work this is doing and how it's healing other women's lives. But we can't continue to serve the women that are reaching out to us needing advocacy support at the capacity we are without expanding and scaling our advocacy support services. We are in the process of trying to raise $125,000. And with that money, as we talked about in a previous live, I'll link, we will be expanding into more of a group advocacy, being able to offer webinars, being able to offer an even greater support to what women previously received. And right now we have a matching grant of $30,000. And this is significant because the matching grant is only for those who are new donors or those who give more than they gave last year. And so I challenge you, if you've not given before, give to this because it will be double today. If you're able to give more than you gave in 2022, I challenge you and partner with us. Right now, we have only met, the last I checked, around 6,500 of our $30,000 matching grant. So I challenge you, if you can give $200 today and you've never given previously, that will be matched. So that would be $400. And with $400, we can start a new webinar that will impact probably hundreds of women's lives. It is worth it. So I invite you to be part of this. Please join us. Thank you so much for your time today. Thank you for everybody who said hello. We appreciate all of our advocates. And I'll say once again, our advocates are called to Peace Ministries. They are the front line of what we are doing. And we are so grateful for each and every one of our volunteers that are serving alongside us to be a safe place and to bring hope and healing to women that are impacted by abuse. So thank you so much. And I hope everybody has a wonderful day.
And we will drop the link to sign up for advocacy classes also in the chat. All right.
Oh, yep. It's already there.
Okay,
Yes.
good. I didn't see that. All right.
And,
Thank you.
And those fees are good until December 31st at midnight. So
Yeah. And it's going to go up about from 69 to 99. Is that correct?
97.
97. So
Mhm.
that's a little bit. So please sign up now before the end of the year. All right. Thank you, Lauren. Thank you, Dr.